Okay, welcome to the next segment on causes of the Great Depression. Today we're going to look at a few more causes on top of the causes we looked at last time. Remember the causes that we had last time. We had the poor banking practices of the 1920s, which would cause people to have no idea where their savings were because there was no regulations on the banks. We had significant overproduction by businesses, and pair that with underconsumption of the consumers who aren't buying very much, and that means we have too much of a product and the prices are going to go down. And when we have too much of a product, businesses start laying people off, and when they lay people off, that means we have high unemployment. Nobody has money. So overproduction and underconsumption are going to be huge when it comes to the Great Depression. Plus, we had a pretty hefty gap between the rich and the poor. Remember, the wealthy 1% is making as much as 42% combined of the population. And you pair all of these factors with some pretty poor big government regulation, and you've got a recipe for a Great Depression. Another major cause of the Great Depression is going to be the high tariffs. Okay, remember we've talked about a tariff. I've said this until I'm blue in the face, but a high tariff means we are making the imported goods more expensive, because if you make the imported good more expensive, people buy American-made goods. Republican presidents are going to support a high tariff because we want to encourage American-made products. Remember, Harding, Coolidge, the business of America is business. The high tariff just supports those ideas. One of the tariffs that's going to be passed that kind of is just like the kiss of death towards the Great Depression is what we call the Hawley-Smoot Tariff of 1930. This raised the price of foreign goods to the point where there was no way they were competing with American-made goods. The problem with this is that European nations are going to create protective tariffs of their own. So while we were trying to encourage everybody to buy American-made goods in the United States, we lose our foreign market because Europe is going to do the same thing to us that we were doing to their products. The problem with this is that World War I had caused European nations to put their money into repairs. So when European nations don't buy our goods, that hurts our economy. Their economy's hurting, our economy is hurting. Worldwide depression spells bad things for everybody. What this means for the United States is that not only are the United States buyers, the consumers here, not buying as much, but Europe is going to cause that underconsumption to go even higher. And underconsumption means high unemployment in the United States. So this high tariff is definitely a cause of the Great Depression. Buying on margin. I briefly talked about this in the last video when we talked about the bull versus bear market. Remember, the bull market is when everything looks great. Stock prices are climbing, climbing, climbing. Bear market is bad. Stock prices are falling, falling, falling. Buying on margin is a part of that bull market. When someone doesn't have the money to pay full price for a stock, they could do what's called buying on margin. Now, if you're sitting there saying, what the heck is a stock? A stock is like a piece of a company. So if you go and purchase a stock for, say, Apple, that means you own a very small piece of Apple. And people like that. They want to invest their money because if Apple does really well and I own a stock, I could make money. But you kind of have to take the good with the bad. And if a company does bad and you own stock in it, well, then you also lose money. So another cause here is going to be buying on margin. Because if I say, I'll use this example again, say I have $100. And I'm super excited to invest some money, and I say, you know what? Apple's been doing really well. I'm going to take my $100 and buy a stock in Apple. Oh, well, when I go to buy that stock in Apple, it's over $1,000. I don't have $1,000. But wait, I could buy on margin. So what I do is I take my $100, I go to a stockbroker, and I say to them, I would like to buy a stock in Apple. I have $100. Can you spot me the rest? And the broker does, because we have a shared interest to make money. If we both split the price of the share in Apple, if that stock price goes up when Apple starts doing really well, we'll sell it. I'll take money, I'll pay back the broker. Everybody, at the end of the day, we make money. So people thought that the stock market was the newest get rich quick scheme in the United States. So they would put down whatever savings they did have, borrow the rest in the hopes that stock prices would go up. Now, in the 1920s, the demand for stock is high. And when we talk about supply and demand, when demand is high and supply is low, the price rises. That's exactly what happened to the stocks. Everybody goes and buy in the stock market, so the prices go up because there's not very many stocks to buy. The problem with this is that the stock market was rising not based on actual sales from the company, because we just talked about how there was overproduction, underconsumption, which means businesses aren't doing that well. Real stock prices are supposed to be based on how well the business does, not how much they can sell in the stock market. But Americans see that the prices are going up, they think that they have to get in low, sell high, and then they're going to make some money. So Americans are going to buy the stock on margin, borrowing money, in the hopes that the price would eventually increase and they would make some money. But if the stock price goes down, then the full price of the stock has to be paid back to the broker. And if you were borrowing money in the first place, that kind of means that you don't have enough money to pay back that broker. And what people thought was going to make them rich really fast actually gets them into debt faster. So the buying on margin is the number one cause of the Great Depression. We're building up this stock market with hot air, and eventually it's going to pop, and we're just going to be left with the pieces, unable to put them back together. The absolute immediate cause that we think of when we think the Great Depression is the crash of the stock market. In September of 1929, the stock market's going to be on the decline. Prices of stocks had peaked and they're going to start to fall. Now, when prices start to fall, so does the confidence in the investors that had put their money into the stock market. So once prices start to fall, people go absolutely insane and they sell because the goal of the stock market is you want to sell when the price is at its peak. And if prices are starting to come down, people panic and they don't want to wait for that stock price to eventually go back up. So what they do is they get while the getting's good and they sell in the hopes that maybe they'll get some kind of return or at least just get back what they put in. Now, what happens when people go crazy and just sell everything? Well, that means that the demand is low, the supply is high, and the price is going to bottom out. And that's exactly what happens on October 29th, which we refer to as Black Tuesday. The market is going to crash. Speculators, the people that we just talked about buying on margin, they're going to lose everything that they had. This great crash represents the Depression. We are not in a recession anymore where the stock prices are gradually starting to decline, where unemployment is gradually starting to rise, where prices are starting to fall. No. We hit this all in one day. Billions of dollars are going to be lost as the value of stocks start to fall. The stock market crash is going to signal a number of events that are going to lead to the collapse of the economy. And this is where things start to get a little scary. Now, the last piece that we're going to do today is the immediate effects of the stock market. Then we'll take care of President Hoover next time. The immediate effects of this crash are going to include bank failures. People are going to see what's happening in the stock market, and they're going to go to the banks to try to get their life savings out because they just lost all of the money. Maybe they're unemployed now. Maybe they lost it in the stock market. Whatever it might be, they're going to go to the banks. The banks had a problem though. They had lent money to speculators who lost the money in the stock market, and those loans aren't going to be paid back. So when people tried to go get their money out, the working class families that had saved their money in the bank, they couldn't get it out because the money was gone. Consumers who had bought on credit those products that everybody had to buy now can't make their payments because they're not making money in the stock market. They're not getting their life savings. They might have gotten fired from their job. When people can't make payments, when people don't have money to buy more goods, manufacturers are going to have to start laying off more people. And they're going to cut the wages of the people that do remain to make up for their losses. So now we have high unemployment, which is kind of counterproductive because they're going to spend even less. Middle class Americans are going to turn to soup kitchens and charity lines, a system that we didn't really have set up to take care of all of the people that are going to need help during this time. You have to erase from your brain everything that's happened in today's world. If you got laid off, you could apply for unemployment. That didn't exist. There wasn't any government help because remember, the government was hands off. We're looking at Coolidge here, who had said the government shouldn't be used to solve social problems. So there was no setup for a rainy day that the government would help you out. And that leads us right straight into the Great Depression. This parallels exactly what we've been through today. Think about what would have happened last year in March when all of these people were put out of work if there had been no government help. That's exactly where we're going to be at when the stock market crashes. There is no stimulus for the people. There is no unemployment. There is no social security. We can't depend on anything because the government hadn't set that up yet. So the Great Depression is going to come during a time where the government is going to look at the people and say, maybe you should fix it yourself. And that's where we'll pick up next time when we start to talk about Hoover and his response to the Great Depression. Don't forget about your homework tonight. Any questions? Let me know.